everyone. It's Ryan Fowler here with my good friend Jordan Kurtz. Inner Game Group live every Saturday around this time, starting a few minutes late. Sorry about that. And Tim will be joining us. He's just running behind. But we have a very interesting show today. We are going to look at a type of psychotherapy, internal family systems, that kind of bridges the gap. It's kind of halfway between something like cognitive behavioral therapy and hypnosis. And it has a lot of really interesting concepts. It helps explain how our mind works and how it defends us. Our brain is very interesting because we develop subconscious trauma, which we're going to dive into. And then it develops its own defenses against the subconscious trauma, which is in us. And so internal family systems is a way to explain how all of this is working within us. And there's a lot of overlap between that and hypnosis. But with that said, I've had clients who use internal family systems. And so we're going to compare that to hypnosis and kind of see the differences. But also there's really just going to be a lot of discussion today that really is going to help the audience understand what's going on in our subconscious, why people are stuck or have too much anxiety, too much anger, too much depression, feeling sad, whatever, all of that. It's really going to bring a lot of understanding to that. So before we get into that, it'd be a great show today. But before we get into that, Jordan, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself.
Hello, hello. It's always a good day when all your equipment works the first time. Isn't that nice?
Nice.
When you're setting up. I'm Jordan Kurtz. I do hypnosis like Ryan and Tim. And I was, as I often do when I'm trying to pick ideas for this show, I thought this inner peace and healing guy seemed interesting. I hadn't heard of Richard Schwarz before, but I listened to the whole thing on like 2x speed last night while I was playing Star Wars Battlefront. And I really liked a lot of the body awareness that he does is very, very relevant to the stuff kind we do. He's like, follow that feeling in your body. What is that feeling like? What does that feeling need? He's like, use your intuition, not your logical mind. Like, just say the first thing that comes up. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of the ways that we help clients describe what's going on, is using their intuition. And you'll see Dr. Huberman. He's a doctor, right?
Yeah, they're both doctors.
Yeah. You'll see Huberman kind of go through that process in himself and kind of self-reflect on things. It's the first time Huberman always, to me, it seems very very logical and fact-based, and he's very concise, and he's really good at explaining things. And it's interesting because Richard Schwarz kind of starts to peel back that layer of why he's like that a little bit, why he's so precise and fact-based and wanting, it's very interesting to watch. It's kind of a side of Huberman that I haven't seen before.
So they do a little therapy on Andrew Huberman, and there's a lot of overlap with that and what we do with hypnosis. But I want to have a discussion with, I've had clients who use internal family systems. They really like it. And there's a lot about it that I like too. And I would say you compare it to, they call the gold standard, cognitive behavioral therapy is the gold standard. And what I find ironic is cognitive behavioral therapy, that's a normal sit on the couch, talk to your shrink and blah, blah, blah. There's other variants of that, like dialectic therapy. And, I'm sure the psychologist will insist that it's not just a variant, but it really is. So,
yeah,
I won't go into that, but, I would say it's halfway between, cognitive behavioral therapy works 10% better than placebo. Those are the facts. And so they call it the gold standard. Like, they have the nerve to call it the gold standard when it doesn't work on half the people who do it. It's ridiculous. But I would say the next step up from that is internal family systems. A lot of good stuff here. I do want to have a discussion with you, Jordan, because we do sessions, 1, 2, 3 sessions people are forever changed. Like all day, every day, we do it. Like massive change, like all the time. And so I want to compare hypnosis to this method after we, the audience sees what it's about, and say, all right, what are we doing different? But there is so many good things that internal family systems does do. So, man, if everyone was doing this instead of CBT, it'd probably be like 75% recovery rate instead of 50% you get with CBT. So, but it does take longer, but it is more effective. So let's dive in. Go ahead and cue up the clip, and
All right.
good doctors here are going to explain what this is, and we're going to comment here and there. They have a model that's not too different from ours for explaining how the subconscious mind works. It's all very interesting. I think it'll be very useful for our audience today. Hey, Tim, welcome to the show.
Hello.
And so we're just talking about internal family systems. I kind of view it as kind of halfway between the gold standard of psychotherapy, CBT, and what we do, because it does actually, internal family systems actually works on your subconscious mind. They're actually going in and intuitively, not cognitively, but intuitively interfacing with your subconscious. So we're going to look at that. Tim, is there anything you want to add about, you watch this already? Anything to add before we dive into the clip, Tim?
Not a lot. I agree with you that it is sort of CBT meets family therapy meets very, very light focus on hypnosis. So it's not a bad mix. It will work over time. I do love that people are talking with one another and trying to understand exactly what's going on with their relationships. That's always healthy. But like we always say before, if they got their trauma cleared and then did this, it would be monumentally effective.
Yeah. Well, I do think they do clear some trauma with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they just don't do like the big we do. Yeah. And we'll I have stuff to say, but let's watch the clip first so our audience knows what the hell we're talking about. Right. So go ahead, Jordan.
Got it.
And this should be right after that.
Dr.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep.
Schwarz, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. It's delightful to be with you.
Yeah, I've heard so much about you and your work and internal family systems models. I've had the opportunity to do a little bit of that work. To be honest, I don't know whether or not the person I did that work with was formally trained in it. So I'd like to start off by just asking you, what is internal family systems and what are the different components? And as we do that, I'm sure people are going to be thinking about these various components for their own life and the people in their lives.
Great.
So, yeah.
Well, originally I developed it as a form of psychotherapy, which is probably the way it's used most now, but it's also become a kind of life practice and just a paradigm for understanding the human mind and as an alternative to the culture's paradigm. So that's saying a lot, and it's been quite a journey.
I know Freudian psychoanalysis. I know of, any number of different branches of psychology that have a clinical slant to them. There's cognitive behavioral therapy. What are the core components of internal family systems?
Yeah. So one basic assumption is that the mind isn't unitary, that actually we're all multiple personalities, not in the diagnostic sense, but we all have these, what I call parts, other systems call subpersonalities, ego states, things like that. And that it's the natural state of the mind to be that way, that we're born with them because they're all very valuable and have qualities and resources to help us survive and thrive. But trauma and what's called attachment injuries and the slings and arrows we suffer force these little naturally valuable parts into roles that can be destructive. Often they don't like it all, but because they're frozen often in time during the trauma, and they live as if it's still happening, they're in these protective roles that can be quite extreme and interfere in your life. And so I just stumbled onto the phenomena now I think it's 41 years ago, and it's been, amazing ride.
So at the time, were you already practicing as a clinical psychologist?
I actually have a PhD in marital and family therapy. So I was part of the movement in family therapy away from intrapsychic work. And there was a polarization, and we thought we could reorganize families and heal all these symptoms just by doing that. We didn't have to muck around in the inner world. And I went to prove that. And this was about 1983 by getting a group of bulimic kids together and their families and tried to reorganize the families just the way the book said to, and failed. The kids didn't realize they'd been cured and they kept binging and purging. So out of frustration, I began asking why. And they started talking this language of parts. And they would say some version of, when something happens, bad happens in my life, it triggers this critic who's calling me all kinds of names inside. And that goes right to the heart of a part that feels empty and alone and worthless. And that's so distressing to feel that the binge part comes in and takes me out, takes me away from all that pain. But the critic comes in and attacks me for the binge. And then the criticism goes right to the heart of that worthless part. So to me, as a family therapist, this sounded like what I'd been studying in external families, these circular sequences of interaction. And so I just got curious. And
So let's
just
stop
started
right there
to
for a
explore.
second.
Yeah. I'll let you go first.
I've
I'll
got
go
a question,
second.
Ryan, for you. I probably don't know the answer. I got some ideas running around in my head. So he talks about these parts, and these parts, as I listen to the whole video and understand that these are subconscious programs running.
That's it. That's exactly what how
Right.
I see it.
Now, on
Beliefs
top of
tied to
that,
feelings.
he
And that's what he's talking
he
about.
says in the beginning that we are born with these parts. And with that, I disagree, because we're born pretty much a blank slate and we are taught these parts. Would
Well,
you
I'll,
agree or disagree?
So we're born with a predisposition to develop a certain way.
Right.
And that development is further modified by what happens to us.
Right.
But, for example, children are predisposed to idealize their parents. If they're predisposed to blame themselves, if things between them and their parents go wrong, or if their parents fight, they feel maybe they're fighting over me, so it's my fault. So there's all these predispositions there where if certain things happen, there's a predisposition for it to go a certain way. I think we are predisposed. We're wired to develop subconscious programs.
Correct.
And so to that extent, it's playing into what he talks about. But then how they actually develop depends on, partially how we interpret things, although there's a tendency to interpret things a certain way, not always the same way. Some people have trauma, become sociopaths. Some people have trauma, become severely codependent. And so the same thing can happen, and they'll have different belief systems. But, what's universal is trauma is going to muck things up,
So we're not born, because these parts that he's talking about are the things that do develop later that hurts us in the future. So we're born with these predispositions, but not in these specific parts that he's talking about.
I guess you could say we're predisposed to respond to trauma a certain way that causes problems later on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree with that. Okay, good.
But the way I explain our subconscious is we develop beliefs tied to feelings. When he's saying that inner critic, that's a belief. Yep. Something happened to us as a kid, and he's describing it almost as like a sub personality or entity within us. I think that's valid. You can look at it that way. But the inner critic is, this one thing happens and it triggers this belief, and it's a very harsh belief. That's the inner critic. And then he talks about how there's very painful feelings tied to that. So it's a belief tied to a feeling. So he just has, a slightly different model for describing the exact same thing we describe.
Right.
Good. And cool. It's kind of like, you look at a person from different angles. Every viewpoint is looking at the same thing, totally accurate, I think it's useful to kind of see how he describes it. But it's really talking about what we talk about all the time. Same thing from a slightly different viewpoint, but exact same thing.
That's how I took it. Yeah. Good.
But thank goodness he's actually looking at it. He's actually looking at what's at the core, as opposed to a lot of therapists who don't, or they don't look at it accurately, or sometimes not at all.
Right.
Yeah. I thought that Soramina had a good comment here that I also wanted to comment on.
Yeah,
He's
when the
like,
guy
"It
said that he
didn't-"
didn't realize they'd been cured, it's like, well, if you're
I'm-
still bulimic, you haven't been cured.
Yeah,
What the hell is
it's
that?
like, what exactly does he mean by that?
Yeah.
This is strange.
That
But
was
I
really
like.
he said it that way.
I mean, he's using parts kind of in the same way we would use the words, subconscious programs,
Yeah.
like the inner critic, and he's actually using some of the same phrasing, which is, you get triggered, right? that triggers a part of you and makes you judge yourself, or that makes you, want to throw up or not eat or, whatever. And so it's interesting that I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I thought that was neat. That he starts using the same language that we were.
Well, yeah, what's refreshing is you finally get, a guy with a PhD who's actually looking at the stuff we look at. And I have clients who use IFS. Again, I only have a couple, but from what I can see, it is superior to cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll keep
Definitely.
on going.
Sounds good.
Are these different parts that exist within each and all of us, are they represented by a clear and distinct voice from the other, or do people typically experience them as just the self, like my inner critic? You'll give us the other names and titles. Or is this happening typically below people's conscious awareness?
Some of both. So most people are aware of their critic, and but other times you're not aware of these parts we call exiles that you've locked away because you didn't want to feel their feelings. They're stuck in these bad trauma scenes.
Just pause
to
right there real
survive in your
quick.
life, you have
Just real
to-
quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
So these parts you locked away, Carl Jung will call that your shadow work. And parts of our subconscious or parts of who we are we don't want to face, and you may not even be consciously aware of it. But I also want to point out a very common technique we use is for you to have a conversation with a part of yourself that you blame or feel bad about or you're angry at. And so honestly, like what he says about these parts, they're subconscious programs, but they absolutely can take on personalities as well. So just wanted to point that out and keep going.
Push them away. And so with those parts, a lot of people aren't really consciously aware of them until these protected parts give space and open the door to the exiles.
I'd like to take a quick break and acknowledge our sponsor, Better.
Skip through that.
Zoom.
I would definitely want to go in Huberman. Again, that's davidprotein.com/Huberman.
All right.
I would definitely want to go into what the various protector roles or titles are, labels, excuse me, and the exiles. Before we do that, since you brought up the topic of trauma, this is a topic that I think many, many people are interested in. I'm just curious, how do you define a trauma? And why do you think it is that traumas tend to lock us into a state that was representative of an earlier time?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that it's so linked to this thing of time perception?
Yeah, the why question I can't totally answer, but it definitely is. And for me, traumas aren't necessarily traumatizing. So something bad happens to you, and if you can access what you and Martha Beck were calling the self, capital S, and you go to the part of you that got hurt by what happened, instead of pushing it away and locking it up, and you embrace it and you bring it closer to you, which means going to your suffering, which is counter to what most of us try to do. But if you were to do that, and you could help it unload the feelings it got from the trauma, then you're not traumatized. What's traumatizing is something bad happens. These more vulnerable parts of us, the most sensitive parts of us, get hurt or feel worthless because of what happened or get terrified. And then we lock them away because we don't want to feel that feeling anymore. And everybody around us tells us to just let it go, just move on, don't look back.
Okay, just real quick pause.
And so we wind up.
This is our language. This is toxic shame. And this is we do anything to avoid feeling it. Get my ebook. You can go down to school.com/RyanFowlerSOS-7231. Talks about all of this. Sign up for free. Go to the classroom and look at the course. Get the ebook. It's at the beginning. And it lays all this out, slightly different terminology, but it's all there. This is toxic shame he's talking about, and we do anything to not feel it. This is why people really bad addictions. This is what at the core of addictions is use pleasure to cover pain, find ways to avoid, dissociate, ego defense. All of that is about this. So he is very much speaking the language we speak, and thank goodness there's, again, university trained therapists who's actually looking at things the way they should be looked at. But we'll keep going. Unless you
Now, if I could throw down there a little bit, everybody likes to use the word trauma and its iterations, trauma, traumatized, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to sort of define for us that when we're talking that, and I love Gabor Mate's definition of what a trauma is.
Yeah.
And trauma is not what happens to you. Those are events. They may be bad events, tragic events, good events, whatever. But like he says, it's not what happens to you. It's how you feel about what happens to you. So all these sensitizing events that we go through eventually add up to some subconscious program, good or bad.
Forms of belief.
Yeah, you can remember a favorite song when you were holding a girl's hand when you were 14 years old. The minute you hear that song, bam, you're 14 years old again with the same feelings that happened then. Same thing with the traumatizing events or the events that lead to trauma. So what needs to be clear is, like he said, not everything that happens to you traumatizes you. But I'd like to say lots of events happen. Trauma is how you negatively feel about that particular event over time.
This thing happens and you form a painful belief, usually about yourself.
Yes.
It could be the world outside of me isn't safe. That's traumatizing. Now you feel you're in danger all the time, whatever, these phobias, anxiety. Yep. But the rest of the time, it's going to be, oh, this happened. It means I'm worthless. It means mom and dad don't want me. It means, members of the opposite sex don't find me attractive, or friends don't like me, or I'm worthless. So 80-90% of it is beliefs about who we are, core identity beliefs.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep.
Now I'm sitting here trying to remember the name of that song.
When you hear it, you'll know it. I hear one song and I am 13 or 14 years old again, right there with Nancy Carr.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think I had something to say on this. What was he talking about? All over the place.
Yeah. What are you referencing, Jordan?
I had a thought on what he was just saying, but let's just keep going.
Song you can't remember?
I had a thought on what he was saying about this stuff, but I can't remember. Let's keep going.
Exiling our most sensitive parts simply because they got hurt. And then when you have a lot of exiles, you feel more delicate. The world seems more dangerous because anything could trigger that. And when they get triggered, they'll blow up. That
was what I wanted to say. It's not, he said that you want to bring that part closer to you. He's not saying and he's not literally meaning you want to bring that painful feeling, that trauma closer to you, but what he's saying
you go to it so you can heal it.
Right. By bringing that part of yourself closer.
Instead of avoiding it.
Healing yourself. Right.
One of my favorite sayings is, no matter where you go, there you are, which means you can run away from all this crap inside of you. It follows you. Whether you suppress it, you can suppress it all you want. It's still messing up your life, even if you suppress it and don't feel it anymore.
Yes.
And we see that all day, every day. It's you're in less pain. Now you're an addict, or you have all these other maladaptive behaviors to cope with this. It's messing you up, whether you feel it or not, whether you realize it or not.
Correct.
So go to it and heal it. Don't avoid it.
All right.
take over. So it's like these flames of raw emotion come popping out. So other parts are forced into these manager roles or these protective roles. And some of them are trying to manage your life so that you don't get triggered anymore. So that, for example, nobody gets close enough to you to trigger any of that. Or so you look really good so you don't get rejected, or perform at a really high level to counter the worthlessness. Many of those become the critics because in their effort to try to get you to look good, they're yelling at you to try and behave and do what they want so you look better. And then there are other what we call manager protectors that are, for some people, particularly women, have these massive caretaking parts that don't let them take care of themselves and take care of everybody else. And so I could go on and on. There's a lot of common manager roles. And I want to make clear as I'm talking about this, that these are not the essence of the parts. And that's a big mistake that most of the field has made, is to assume the critic is just an internalized critical parental voice instead of listening to it and hearing that it's desperately trying to protect you. So none of these are what they seem. That's the role they've been forced into. And the analogy, again, is to an external family. Like kids in dysfunctional families are forced into these extreme roles that aren't who they are. It's the role they got forced into by the dynamics of the family.
Yeah.
So the same is true with this internal family.
On the money.
So most of us have a lot of what we call managers. They got us here. They help us in our careers, and other systems would call them the defenses or the ego. And in spirituality, they get vilified too. But their whole MO is keep everything under control, please everybody, and you'll survive. The world has a way of breaking through those defenses, triggering an exile. When that happens, it's a big emergency, because again, these flames of raw emotion are going to overwhelm you and make you have trouble functioning or even getting out of bed. So there are other parts that immediately go into action to deal with that emergency. And in contrast to these managers, they're impulsive, reactive, damn the torpedoes. I don't care about the collateral damage to your body, to your relationships. I just got to get you higher than those flames, or douse them with some substance, or distract you till they burn themselves out. So we call those firefighters. And again, these are just the roles. When released from these roles, they'll transform into being something very valuable.
So the
pause right
firefighter,
there.
the inner firefighter role is one of the exiles that surfaces.
So these firefighters, it's all about toxic shame. And that's what he's talking about. People feeling worthless. And so they work really hard so they won't feel worthless to quiet these inner critics. It's all toxic shame. And, what we say all the time, toxic shame is the most painful emotion we have.
Yep.
And so the reason these defenses come up and do anything, including destructive behavior, is because our brain wants above all to not feel that. You still get triggered all the time. You'll still feel it all the time, but it's trying to manage it. And well, I won't say that across the board. Some people suppress it quite well, at least temporarily. It still messes up their lives. But yeah, so he's really in our world. He's talking about what we talk about.
He lives right next door.
Yeah. Just wanted to point that out. And so everything he's talking about is toxic shame. And the new next, for example, it's amazing how fast the external changes when you get your internal right. And so new next, he's used our methods. He knows that they work very, very rapidly, very profoundly. Really good stuff. I've had internal family systems clients, and later on we're going to discuss it absolutely helps. Why does our stuff help so much quicker? I want to go into that, but I guess we'll keep going. I'm just tying what he says to what we say, and it's different terminology for the exact same thing. He absolutely understands what we go into. This is all subconscious here. He's talking about and it's where you need to be, and it's what you need to fix to get better.
I like the analogy. I kind of like the way he's describing it, of these parts of yourself that are protecting yourself, because I think he kind of glossed over it a little bit, but this idea that some psychotherapists are trying to quiet the inner critic, to let that go, rather than what his approach is well, why don't you listen to it? What is it trying to protect you from, rather than just discarding it? And that's the approach that.
And in hypnosis, we do this. It's what we do.
I really enjoy his exile, protector, firefighter. And those are, our subconscious is designed to protect us, help us survive, help us procreate, help us help us to not become injured physically or emotionally. So he's right on track. We do have firefighters and protectors and exiles. They're just essentially subconscious programs that are designed to evoke a response to protect us.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that the personification of the subconscious program is kind of helps flesh out that concept a little more,
Yeah,
because you
I
can
agree.
kind of understand when you're using firefighter or protector. You kind of
Yeah.
understand, okay, I understand what those people
I
are really
understand that
like, and
role.
they do. Right.
Yeah.
We talk about this, but he's talking in higher definition with more detail than how we talk about, toxic shame and covering pain. He's really going into a lot more detail than we do, but in a little bit, he's actually going to kind of do a mini session with Andrew Huberman. Even though all of us know all of this, we don't talk about this in as high detail as he does, because it's simply not necessary when you actually are getting people better. All you do is you find the part and you resolve the issue. You don't need to say, well, this is a firefighter, this is a manager, like that.
Right.
That actually, when it comes to actually helping people, it doesn't help at all to actually get them better. So he's being kind of academic right now, but it is good to understand this. It just, it's not applied therapeutically, I guess you would say.
Well,
when you
unless you're
actually
trying to
see his
understand
practice, he's
yourself,
not like,
though.
oh, talk to your firefighter and say this. He
No.
has you have a conversation just with you, but
Yeah.
everything he's saying is true. Like he's these roles he's identifying, they're valid. They are.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here.
Under
Sometimes-
conditions of a lot of emotion. Maybe we could, this is a beautiful description, and I'm completely on board this idea that we have multiple aspects of self or selves inside. Jung said that too, I think, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
so it's
Young
not-
had all this a long time ago.
Yeah, and what I like about this protectors / managers versus, again, not versus because they're combative, but as a distinct category, the exiles is just feels very true to me. And I like the directness of the language. So maybe we could just create a mental grid for people.
Mhm.
Like if, let's say I came to you as a patient and I said, listen, I'll just be direct. I'll be honest. Why not?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's
all
do
right?
it.
Like, secretly, I brought you here to get therapy. No. But okay. So I'm somebody who, for a very long time, has been able to organize his life. I tend to have smooth interactions with my coworkers, great friendships. I now have a very good relationship with my immediate family. Very good, in fact. I'm still working on a few things with a few people, but I'm living in a mode of great joy and appreciation these days. However, I'm not going to give the details of this for sake of privacy, but the other day I was in a discussion with a family member, and they had a grievance with me that I felt we had already addressed, and it became a very high friction conversation very quickly, to the point where we tabled as an idea that maybe we just take some serious space, which was not reflective of how deeply I love this person or they love me. It was just a feeling of both of us just being in this high tension place, and fortunately the conversation ended well with a path forward that involved more contact, not less, that both of us feel really good about. But in that moment where I'm feeling overwhelmed and they're feeling overwhelmed, what's going on there? We're both adults.
So overwhelmed with anger at each other, or
Frustration.
Frustration, yeah.
Frustration. Like that previous conversations, I felt I hadn't, I was saying things, they were saying things, but I feel like there was so much underlying tension based on a history of poor communication, nested on top of the kind of an intensity of emotion that we both tend to carry. And somehow we just couldn't parse things from that state.
Yeah.
And so I sat in my chair and I just told myself, okay, I'm going to not say anything for 5 minutes because I know myself.
Right.
It's not that I thought I would say something really barbed wire, but I just thought this is not going to work. Like I'm slamming my head against a wall. They're not hearing me. I'm clearly not hearing them. And the thing that helped me through that was just because it was what was taught to me. I just decided to surrender. And the word surrender used to mean to me letting go of truth.
Yeah.
And it felt really scary because when you say surrender, it's almost like saying one context is surrender means you're right no matter, and you're
I was
right.
just going to say that's right.
But I've come to realize that surrender to me is just it's surrender in the moment.
Yeah.
So that I can get better optics.
Yeah.
Internal and external optics. So to me, the thing of embracing surrender in those types of moments, very uncomfortable. But I now have learned it's a great way to get perspective. But even as I describe it, the whole situation was so heavy. I came out of that call, even though it ended well, and was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, ugh. That was like, I'd never run a marathon, but I'd rather run a marathon than do 2 of those a week.
Totally agree. And
Yeah.
I had one of those with my wife a few days ago.
Okay. All right. Well,
And yeah, very similar. Just caught that part and said, okay, let's just let it go for now and we'll talk later. So I could give you my take on what happened, but if you wanted to, we could just go in and do a little exploring.
sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Should we start with the frustrated, angry part?
Sure.
All right. You ready?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. So remember that feeling and then focus on it and find it in your body or around your body.
Okay.
Where do you find it?
Somewhere between the middle of my midsection and up, like right behind my forehead. Like there's pressure
It's great.
both places.
It's great you have such clarity about it. So as you focus there, how do you feel toward this part of you?
Oh no, it's very unpleasant.
So you don't like it?
No, I don't like it.
Yeah, which makes sense because it does, sometimes escalate things with your friend and doesn't leave you feeling good. So I understand why you don't like it. But we're going to ask the parts that don't like it to give us the space to just get curious about it and see if that's possible.
Okay. Okay.
So how do you feel toward it now?
I feel a little bit of relaxation in the head part of it. Yeah, it's funny how when you ask me to localize it, it's so clear. It's like this thing inside me. It's like this about the size of like a teddy bear that's just like, oh, but it's not a good thing. It's like pushed up there. But then when you said to get curious about it, feels like it kind of drops down a little bit and kind of moves in a little, maybe softens a little bit.
So you do feel curious toward
Pause
it?
just real quick.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
go ahead and
Oh,
ask
whoops.
it what it wants.
Okay, so what he's doing that other therapists need to do that they don't, because they just freaking talk all day and then say, oh, think of it this way. He's actually working on the subconscious mind right now.
Yep.
Where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like? Now he's going to start asking Dr. Huberman to give intuitive answers. Our subconscious mind communicates with us, influences us with instinct, intuition, emotion. And we store emotion throughout our nervous system, throughout our body. And we have neurons in different parts of our body that process data like the neurons in our brain, but they have different roles and functions. But, our brain is not just in our head. There's a second brain in our gut. Google it. We have a small brain on our heart. Google it. Clumps of neurons processing stuff, not just nerves. But yet we store these emotions throughout our nervous system, which can be anywhere in our body. Although I see the most in neck, chest, stomach, but you can have it head, arms, back, legs, wherever. You'd be anywhere. So kudos to the good doctor here for actually directly working on the subconscious. And as we go through this, psychology for the most part stopped developing in the 1970s. And I'm not kidding. I mean, they've done a little bit since then, but I mean, mainstream psychology sucks because they suck at innovating. They got to the 1970s with CBT, and then they did a little beyond that and not much. And what's interesting is neuroscience discovered the process for rewiring our brain. They were done with figuring that out in the 1990s. And mainstream psychology has still not picked it up because corrupt, stupid, greedy, I don't know. The research is out there. Go on my YouTube channel, Super Neuroplasticity, parts 1 through 4. Dr. Huberman, one of his very first lectures, talked about how to massively rewire your brain in one shot. It was one of his very first lectures. It's called, if you want to look it up, go to his channel. It's one of the very first ones. It's called How to Use Focus to Change Your Brain. Look at my 4-part series on super neuroplasticity, and he's summarizing what Dr. Michael Merzenich and these other neuroscientists discovered. Go to my channel, the video section, Super Neuroplasticity, parts 1 through 4, and I give a further analysis using him and some others. There's 5 steps to it. Number 1, awareness of what's in you that needs to change. Number 2, it's epinephrine release, which is alertness, but it's enhanced by feeling the emotionality. Number 3, focusing on it. Number 4, telling it to change. And number 5, non-sleep depressed. They're doing parts 1 through 3 right now. Cognitive, like shadow work, what Jung does number 1 only. Awareness. That's pretty much it. They just be aware of what's in your unconscious. That's about all they do. And that's why it freaking sucks. It's a little helpful. It's good to have the awareness, but they change very little, which is why you can do thousands of sessions and only 38% of people respond to it. So they actually go in and change. It's just hypnosis has a heightened level of focus. Hypnosis is heightened focus inward. And we also really focus on this core identity stuff. And we don't just get the bad out. We replace it with optimal core identity beliefs. So we do a lot of what you're going to see him doing now. But we have a way to heighten the inward focus and increase the neuroplasticity so you get a bigger change. But thank goodness, this is what working on the subconscious mind directly looks like. And normal therapists don't do it. And that's why their effectiveness compared to what we do sucks. It sucks. It's not that good. It took me 15 years, 100 sessions. And I still had 40% of my depression, all my anxiety, almost all of my rage. It fixed about 60% of my depression, 20% of my anger. That's it. None of my anxiety. 15 years, on and off, 100 sessions. I mean, ridiculously slow. And I honestly feel a little contempt and disdain towards the mainstream community because I know that they know this stuff. This guy's a good guy. Good guy. But they know this stuff is out there and they refuse to use it probably because it's not a good business model for them. And therefore, again, I'm not talking about your rank and file guy who doesn't know any better, although they should do some research and figure it out, honestly. But the methods to get people better are out there and they willingly ignore it. And shame on them. Shame on them. But this guy is embracing it. Good for him. He doesn't know hypnosis can amplify the effect further. But at least he's in the right ballpark. But he himself said at the beginning, he developed this 41 years ago.
Still trying.
41-year-old technology. It's way better than what normal therapists do. Thank goodness he's directly working on the subconscious and working to change it. Thank goodness. But come on, guys, get with the freaking program. Our mainstream community, in my opinion, as a whole, I know there's many good there. I really like Dr. Huberman. I really like this guy. So I'm not directing it towards certain individuals, but as a whole, our mental health industry is dog shit. It really is. They should do better. They should know better. Shame on them.
It's an SSRI silo.
I know how much people suffer because of their willful corruption and ignorance. Sorry, go ahead, guys.
It's funny is you bring that up. I was watching that Tucker Carlson thing about SSRIs.
You're gonna watch that next week.
Yep.
There's the corruption's being exposed so much.
And she says
so much
research. CDC says the CDC, the people that everybody wants to sort of trust, right? 66 million Americans are on some type of drug, SSRI, depressants, whatever you want to call it. They're on these things. 60 million adults, 6 million children are on these drugs. Amazing. And it's just a feed of money.
The guy who came up with the hypothesis, I emphasize hypothesis, never proven, that mental illness or depression comes from a lack of serotonin in the brain, chemical imbalance. He later recanted it. He said it's wrong. And they never had convincing evidence that it was right. And for the last 10, 15 years, the research is coming out. These medications don't help anyone in the long run. And they basically work 3% better than placebo in the short run, but then you get a ton of side effects.
And if you got to use a placebo, let's do M&Ms because M&Ms taste better than those pills.
Yeah. Just tell yourself M&Ms will work and now you get about the same result without the side effects. It's ridiculous. It never proven. The guy who came up with the hypothesis recanted it, and it's still the model people follow. The psychiatrists follow, even though they know it doesn't work. It's such bullshit. Our industry, the psychiatric industry is so thoroughly corrupt. Anyways, whatever. They know it. They know it's bullshit, but they're making money. They know it's a lie, and they keep perpetrating. It's been proven scientifically it's a lie. They still push it. Shame on them. All right, I'm off my soapbox. We'll keep going. But these two guys I like. There are good people in the field, but the mainstream as a whole is dog shit. Shame on
he's having Andrew connect with the feeling in his body, and if you ever work with one of us, we'll have you do the exact same thing. That's how you connect to these negative subconscious programs or parts, as he's describing. So
this is the direction things need to move in to get people better. Keep going.
Yep.
Wants you to know about itself?
Silently.
Up to you. Either way, whichever is more comfortable.
Well, since this is a podcast and none of this is comfortable anyway for me to do in public, if I'm quite honest.
Just ask inside.
Sure. No, I'll do it out loud. Okay. So what do you want me to know about you?
Yeah. And just wait for the answer. Don't think. I know you've got a big cognitive part, so we're going to ask that one to relax. And just whatever comes in terms of the answer, just wait for it.
Well, my answer is based on the feeling that occurred immediately after asking it, which was, the answer was, I can dissipate. And then I kind of felt it dissipate.
Okay.
So it feels like an energy that when condensed sucks. But when I look at it, softened a little bit, and then asked the question you asked, and then it feels like it just kind of went into the rest of my body, but not poisoning the rest of my body, just kind of mixing in with, of course we're speaking in complete, in mystical terms here, but
right. So it relaxed. It may not have dissipated in the way we think about that. It might have just relaxed more. But just keep asking it, what's it afraid would happen if in that context it didn't try to take over in the way that it did? Just ask that question.
That if it didn't try to take over?
Yeah, what's it afraid would happen if it hadn't tried to take over?
Oh.
Just wait for the answer.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so what would happen if you didn't take over my system that way? Condense from my stomach up to my head when I'm feeling that way.
Yeah. Don't think. Yeah.
No, the answers are coming really quick. That I wouldn't be able to discern the truth.
Okay. So the truth is really important to this part of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it tends to surface when I'm hearing something that I believe to be fundamentally untrue, typically about my thoughts or feelings, right? Okay. I've come, maybe with age, I've come to the conclusion that two people can look at the same interaction or same thing and have two very different versions of it. I'm okay with that. Yeah. The part that I'm very, very sensitive to, people in my life know this, is when someone else tells me how I feel,
right?
What my motives are or how I feel. That to me is like that's a kind of a hard, fast way to engage this thing.
Okay. So just stay with this thing. Just stay with it.
Okay.
And let it know you get that having people misinterpret your motives is really, really hard for it. And ask it more about that. Just, again, don't think, but ask why that's so hard. Why does that bother it so much? And what's it afraid would happen if it let that go? Yeah.
So why are you afraid to, or why do you have to step in when that happens? My answer is not going to be very satisfying for the listeners, or for me. But it's saying, because if you can't hold on to your truth, then nothing will make sense.
So there's something about making sense or nothing making sense that it's really scared of. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I decided to become a biologist and to try and understand the meat.
See, that smile was like, you could tell that Richard hit the nail on the head there. He's like, yeah, that's
this like, this is actually similar to the dive to the 5 process we do. And this is, again, there's 5 steps to rewire your brain, to get the trauma out of you, heal it. Number 1's awareness. This is awareness, but they're not, he's not talking to Andrew Huberman's cognitive mind. He's talking to the intuitive mind, which is subconscious, which is connected to all these subconscious beliefs. It knows what's down there. So he's like, just ask it this question and wait for the response. That is directly interfacing with subconscious. And we
And
do
you can-
something very similar. It's a little different. It has a little different focus, but very similar. He's finding out what is a subconscious program in you and what is it about. And our process, it's probably about 75, 80% similar. It's a little different. But this is the first step, is get your subconscious to give you the answer and to probe and explore. This is actually where hypnotists fall short, because hypnotists, their process for figuring out what's in your subconscious, by and large, and we've all taken the professional hypnotist training. There's parts therapy and other stuff they do, and it's just so low resolution. It's not even useful, in my opinion. So he's really good at the awareness, getting the awareness. This is like solid gold technique here. What do you guys think?
And notice, I wanted to point out, you notice how Andrew Huberman said, well, this answer isn't going to be very satisfying for me or the listeners, and I think what's happening there is his logical mind is starting to invade and go, well, this doesn't really make sense, but this is intuitively how I feel. And that's one of the rules that Ryan has on the Dive to the Five, is listen to your
Don't use
intuition,
your
your
analytical
emotions, not your analytical mind. Right. So,
and if it's not it doesn't matter if it's a satisfying answer. If it's what is in you, once we become aware of it, we can connect to it and change it. So it doesn't matter whether what's in you is not good, because we're going to change it. Just figure out what it is. And Dr. Huberman, you can tell he's done a lot of work going inward and figuring stuff out, because he is doing this a lot quicker than most of our clients.
I was going to say
he has a lot of self-awareness.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
Well, he's a unique beast. He is a very, very intellectual man, very analytical man, very logical man, very scientific based man, and he's a very damaged individual, as is coming out. He's still got a lot of trauma and pain inside him, but he's of the place where he knows how to connect to it. He knows what it's about. He feels it often. He's super aware of it, which is really helping Dr. Schwarz along. Now, Dr. Schwarz is making a couple of references, very light, right before Andrew answered that question, about authenticity. He was talking about what is it you want, right? What's deep down. And that's the inner child type of thing we're talking to now. Now we're getting that little kid in there that says, hey, I'm in here, and this is what I really need to help me out here. So I love the interconnection of all the different things. I'm not a big fan of the lack of resolution to it all, but he's doing the right stuff.
Well, we're just in the discovery phase,
Correct.
Figure out what's in there. So there's 5 steps. Become aware of what needs to change. That's the phase we're in now. He's doing some of step 2 as well, which is emotionality. It releases epinephrine in your brain, which actually makes it's one of the neurochemicals that'll subconscious is irrational, Zoramina. 75% of our subconscious beliefs are in us by age 8, and our logic circuits aren't fully online till age 8. So a lot of them are irrational.
I would just say maybe they appear irrational at first glance, because I think there are solid reasons why we have those intuitions and feelings. It's just maybe at first glance they don't match with how we logically think they should be.
Yeah. Well, there's always a good and logical reason why it's there, but that doesn't mean that the belief serves us or that it matches with reality. One I use is someone will say, I feel like I always fail. And then their analytical mind is, well, you don't always fail. You succeed here, 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 and here. They come up with times in their life they did succeed, but they feel they always fail, even if that doesn't match with reality. So there can be a good reason they feel they always fail, because when they were a kid, they couldn't do anything right. No matter what they did, they always got criticized by their parents. So there's good reason that feeling's there, even though it doesn't match with reality. But there are 5 steps to rewiring your brain. They're doing number 1 and 2, awareness and connecting to the emotion. They're actually going to start doing number 3, which is focus and just where do you feel it in your body? That's step number 3. You're focusing on the trauma in you. Step 4 and 5 is tell it to change in non-sleep deep rest. And what we do amplifies this. Dr. Huberman, when he interviews Dr. Robert Spiegel, who is the co-chair of the Department of Psychiatry at Stanford and a world-class hypnotist. And Dr. Huberman asked Dr. Spiegel, what is hypnosis? And he says it's heightened focus inward. And that's why we use hypnosis, because as you see, Dr. Huberman's logical mind is interfering a little bit here. We intentionally quiet. We don't shut off your conscious, but we intentionally quiet that part down so it doesn't interfere. So hypnosis, as it amplifies the effect of what they're doing with internal family systems. They actually talk about how they use psychedelics later, which amplify neuroplasticity, ketamine, MDMA, psilocybin. Those in certain ways amplify neuroplasticity. So they're using that. We use hypnosis, amplifies neuroplasticity. So when you couple the amplification of neuroplasticity together with these methods, they can become extremely powerful, which is what we do. But we'll keep going. This is good stuff. This is where therapy should be. Yep. And then just amplify the effect of neuroplasticity, and then you have the results we get, which is we change people's lives massively, permanently. I'd say 80% of the people come to me after one session, their life is forever different. Doesn't mean we fixed everything, but they have a noticeable, substantial 80%. And then about 15%, they're still better. They still know they're better, but maybe it's a more subtle effect. So, and that's okay. You just keep going until you're fixed.
All righty.
Inside our heads and body, that is the nervous system, because I felt, and I still feel, that it can reveal some fundamental facts or truths. Is understanding reality, as it were, is really important to me, because I feel like humans, including myself, of course, are so prone to misinterpretation. Mm-hmm. So like the truth as a thing out there, I'm willing to let go of completely.
Right.
Completely.
Right.
The truth as it exists, for knowing for certain what my motivations were, or what did or didn't happen. But typically it's about motivation. Right. What did or didn't happen, you usually can parse with somebody.
Yeah.
That's something I feel I need to protect at all costs.
Yeah. So speaking of protect, and so this is a protector part, right? Ask it if it's protecting other parts of you that are vulnerable and get hurt when someone misattunes to what your motive is. Just ask that question. Don't think.
Mm-hmm. That's a fast one. Not easy, but it's a fast one. Yeah. The part of me that feels injured by that is the fact that I believe that I, at least at the beginning and throughout most of a relationship, and even if a relationship ends for whatever reason, that I know it's my nature to try and imagine as much goodness in the intent of the other person as possible. Mm-hmm. So if I were to let go of this response, I keep going in my mind, I'm calling it like this, like it's like a titanium teddy bear shaped thing, but it's not feel like it's like a titanium block there. Mm-hmm. I would potentially move into a mode of judgment of them. It's interesting because there are many people from my past, and maybe even a few from my present, that people close to me who are pretty well qualified tell me like I should dislike them or cut them out of my life. And there are a few, maybe one or two instances of people I've cut out of my life, but it's my inclination always to just try and see what can exist. Yeah. So that part feels important to me. I don't know why it's important now that I come to think about it. Like, well,
we can ask, but so what I'm hearing is this guy, this titanium guy, is keeping at bay another part that can be very judgmental of the other person.
Yeah, I don't like feeling that.
Yeah.
It feels energetically wasteful.
Yeah.
And it feels, more than that, it feels incredibly sad.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I think to accept that part of myself is to kind of give up on some fantasy, which is probably an unrealistic fantasy, which is why I'm calling it a fantasy, I realize.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this, because I look at, and I always have since I was a kid, I look at people as we are among the animals. We're the curators of the earth because we're good at technology development. But aside from that, and just like I can't imagine that a raccoon, looks at another raccoon and was like, that's a bad raccoon. It's just a rabid raccoon,
right?
And they just, I sort of yearn for the same, the same sensitivity to our own species.
I get that.
Yeah. Like I don't hate anybody.
Well, there might be parts of you that do, but
I hate behaviors.
okay.
I hate things that people have said or done. Not certainly, mostly to other people, not to me. But being like really being angry at someone in a pervasive way, not just in the moment,
Yeah.
is something that's very difficult for me.
But what I'm hearing, what we heard from this part, it's afraid if it doesn't do this, a part that judges the other, probably in a not so nice way, would be released. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So there is that part in there. It's just that you've been able to kind of exile it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with the idea that you take the appropriate amount of distance, could be 0 or could be near infinite, but that I should take the appropriate amount of distance from things and people so that I can be in the most loving stance toward them or that.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sound technical here with all the parallel constructions, but I've thought this through a lot. Like there's some people that there's no limit to the extent to which I want to interact with them. Given we have other things to do, we're not going to spend all our time together. And then there are other people that I love them, but I know that I have to keep a certain amount of distance in order to continue to love them. This is the same thing. So in that moment, it's almost like, but it's coming up without my conscious thing. It's not like saying, listen, that's the kind of person I can, talk to like once a month or something. And I'll just add, in professional settings, not now, but in the distant past, when I was in a very hierarchical structure, I'm still in academia, still teach, but not running research anymore formally. Like I had a couple senior colleagues that I really loved and respected, but that they would say or do things that I thought were frankly unethical to other people. And to me, I felt them as kind of abrasive. So I might, like the physical manifestation of this is, I would make it a point to like walk past their office door quickly so that they didn't say, hey, because I don't want to interact.
Right.
But I'm not familiar with cutting people out of my life.
Right.
I'm just not familiar with doing that. I sort of don't believe in it as a value.
Let's pause for a second. I'll give you a little overview where we are.
Let's pause just real quick.
So we started.
I just want to point out that when he's describing how he deals with other people, that's very similar to how he deals with certain parts of himself he doesn't like so much.
Yep. He's got a little bit of
and that's
anger
what
and rage
internal
trapped
family
there as
systems
well.
is about. What's that?
He's got a little bit of anger and rage trapped down in there. And if you'll notice, his actions throughout his day in the hallway, interactions, whatever, are affected how he thinks other people may feel about him because he feels that way internally. Yeah. So he has some things to let go for sure.
I do think he has done a lot of healing already.
Oh,
I do
yes.
think he has.
Oh, yes.
So, and like he says, in many ways, his life, his relationships with others, family members have been reconciled. And in many ways, he's doing really well. I'm not at 100%. I mean, I'm probably compared to where I was like 98%, so we always have these little things we got to work on, or we'll never be to pristine just because our psyche is so vast. Yep. And some stuff is just hidden down in us until we get in certain situations that'll trigger something in us we didn't even know it was there until we get in the right situation that triggers it. But yeah, this is all good. This is like our world, but the difference is the methodology we use enhances neuroplasticity, so you get a lot more change a lot more quickly. But he's in the right ballpark. Dr. Huberman knows hypnosis works. He talks to
Spiegel.
Well, Spiegel, he was on Mike Tyson's show, and Mike Tyson did hypnosis, and it's a hot boxing. Mike Tyson, Andrew Huberman, watch that. Excellent. Maybe we'll pick it apart sometime. And Mike Tyson is like, oh, hypnosis works, man. I did it. It worked on me. And Dr. Huberman says, yeah, it's basically psychic surgery. It's basically going in, finding the part in you that's traumatized and rewiring your brain surgically in a specific way. And so he knows that. The co-chair of psychiatry at Stanford, world-class hypnotist, it's one of his major focuses, and co-chair of psychiatry at one of the top 5 universities one of the top 3 for psychology, top 5 neuroscience, top 5 psychiatry in the world. So and it is sometimes ranked number 1 in the world for psychology. It depends on who's rating it, but it's been ranked number 1. It goes back and forth between Harvard, and I think UC Berkeley is really up there too. I'm not sure. So these guys are not just world class, but they're at the world class university, one of the top ranked. It's just like Why doesn't this get mainstream, you know? But
Yep, absolutely.
it's
Man,
getting
that
there,
hour
man, and
went
we're
by
doing our part.
fast.
What's that?
That hour went by fast.
Yeah,
Jeez.
so you guys have any final thoughts? What do you guys think about IFS versus hypnosis? What do you think the differences are? Similarities,
Jordan.
anything else? Final thoughts.
I mean, he's kind of getting him to a light hypnotic state. Probably he's trying to
Yeah.
move away that part of the conscious mind to focus on the more feelings.
When you focus inward,
intuition
you're in a
part of that
light state of
mind.
hypnosis. The more you focus, the deeper the state.
I just think you get like him asking these questions is like, well, what do you need from this part to be safe? I think it's just that kind of healing is just more effective when you're in hypnosis, when you're in a much deeper trance, because and typically these are the kinds of questions we would ask like an inner child or something like that, where there's that part of you that needs reassurance. And so it's just turning that dial to be much more effective. I mean, these are very similar questions. I mean, we have them ask the inner child, what do you need most right now?
Yeah.
And you listen for that response. And that's kind of what he's doing. What does that part of you need right now? And what,
or you have a conversation with the part of you that you're angry at. I blame myself for not getting farther ahead in life. I blame myself for all the mistakes I've made. But imagine the person in front of you in hypnosis that's to blame for everything. This part of you that's to blame for that. Have a conversation, let it go. So a lot of overlap. I talked to a client 2 to 4 hours before the session, and I'm doing stuff very similar to this, probably 80% overlap. Yep. But then when it comes to actually making the changes, rewiring your brain, that's where something like hypnosis is going to massively amplify the effectiveness of the work done. It just accelerates it. I think these guys are more or less doing what we do, like a huge overlap minus the hypnosis that accelerates the process. But I like his model. I think his model is 100% valid. We look at it a little differently, but we know that we're all talking about the same thing, just looking at it from a slightly different angle, slightly different, not even that different.
Well, I'm curious to the extent to which the effects are permanent, or how much he's actually rewiring the brain here. I mean, he seems to be
probably little bits at a time.
They do. I have clients have used IFS and they've given me like IFS lectures. They actually do go in and rewire, but they're not amplifying the effect with hypnosis. But he talks later on how they have these ketamine parties, and ketamine enhances neuroplasticity. I've had clients who've done sessions while on ketamine. It was medically prescribed, by the way. But if you study psychedelics, they enhance neuroplasticity.
So here's what I like about IFS. Dr. Schwarz has taken a very complex subject, and although he doesn't do it as surgically as we do as far as rewiring and clearing trauma, he has built a story around it with characters that a lot of people can visualize. And sometimes that helps them process information or give them some object to question or answer for them. The protector, the firefighter, the exile, they all have different roles. Now, we all know they're all subconscious programs, but it's sort of cool that he's given them a role and a name and something that somebody can visualize. So I do like that aspect of it, even though the progress is not as fast. It's a much better business model because you get visit after visit after visit after visit, and it will take some time to achieve what you want to achieve, where we do it in 1 or 2 sessions. But I do like his storytelling type of thing.
So one of my clients who does internal family systems, before he came to me, he did it for like 3 years. It does help him quite a bit, but it does take a while. And so to compare it to hypnosis on my end, there's the neuroscience. Again, watch my 4-part series on super neuroplasticity. It has Dr. Huberman. I highlight the specific parts in his lecture. He says the science has found the 5 steps to change your brain. Number 1, awareness. Number 2, emotionality, or something to release epinephrine. Again, a cup of coffee release epinephrine, but emotionality is the most effective. Not the only way, but the most effective. So awareness of what needs to change. Epinephrine release. Emotionality is the best way to do that. Focusing on what's in you. It's where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like? You're focusing, even just interfacing like that. Number 4, making the change. And number 5, non-sleep deep rest, or just get a really good night's sleep. They do number 1 every bit as good as we do. Maybe even a little better, but not better. We do it really good. Emotionality, they are focusing on the emotion. So I'd say they do that just as well. Focus. Well, they do focus on what's in you. They're doing that right here, but they're not enhancing it with hypnosis. So we kick more ass there. Number 4, making the change. We do have better methods for making big, massive, rapid change, although they're doing that. And I would say this is the first system we've looked at other than hypnosis. And by the way, a lot of conventional hypnosis falls short in the awareness category of the 5. And so it's like hypnosis does like 4.25 out of 5. We do 5 out of 5. They're doing 5 out of 5. They're just not amplifying number 3 and number 4, and also number 5, which is what hypnosis will do. And that's why they're doing what we do. You can get the same benefits, but it's accelerated because the hypnosis effect amplifies, as you know, step number 3, 4, and 5, and makes it much more effective that way.
Yeah.
But kudos to him, because they're using all 5 steps. Shadow work only uses 1. Cognitive behavioral, the first one, cognitive behavioral therapy is like number 1 and number 4. They don't do number 2, 3, or 5 at all. And you can literally look at these different therapies, see which of the 5 steps of superneuroplasticity that they're using. And the more they use them, then the better they use these steps, the more effective the therapy is. Because the ultimate goal is to find the stuff in you that's messing you up and change it. That's the goal.
Yep.
So follow the 5 steps. That's how you do it. The science is out there. Watch my video, watch the Dr. Huberman video, how to use focus to change your brain, one of his earliest videos. It's all there. It's been known for 30 years at this point. So, but he's a good guy, this doctor here. So
Absolutely.
that's all I had.
Very good.
That's all I got. I'm just going to announce, I'm going to add into the description of this video, I have new free self-hypnosis content if people are interested. So you can join.
Yeah, give it to me. I'll put it in the banner next to my stuff, Jordan.
Yeah, I will next time we have the show.
But if you want to try out all 5 steps of superneuroplasticity, self-hypnosis, right there, school.com/RyanFowlerSOS-7231. Link is in the description as well for that. There's a free self-hypnosis course, free basic self-hypnosis course. We've had people fix their anxiety approaching attractive women. We've had people fix their depression. Again, we're not making any claims it'll do that. I'm just saying people have fixed their depression. People have fixed their procrastination with a free program. Give it a shot. I don't think it's going to be free forever, guys. I think at some point I'm not going to make it free anymore, and you're going to have to pay for it. So get it now while it's free, because it's a basic program. It can still be very, very powerful. And if you really just want big, massive change, hit one of us 3 up, do a session. Links in the description for all 3 of us. Invest in yourself. You're worth it, and it really does work. Thank you for everyone watching. Zoramina, the new Next, Carrie, Leopard Leatherworks, everyone else, Duarte, P-Dubs. That's all we had. You can rewire your brain. This stuff really does work, and these guys are doing it. They're just not amplifying the effect, but they are doing it. So good for them. And take control of your life, because when you fix your brain, it changes everything. And then you'll discover what we've discovered and what we are still discovering as we are on this journey too. We're just farther ahead in some ways. But you'll discover what we've discovered, which is you truly do have more power than you know. That's our show. Thank you.